When this year started, I had next to nothing to be excited about in the realm of video games. I could count on one hand the amount of upcoming games I was even remotely interested in, and even then, most of those games were just titles and logos with no footage released. I've been subsisting off of mere promises. And worse yet, some of the games I was interested in released and ended up being disappointments. After beating Resident Evil a whole bunch of times, and being pleasantly surprised by Pragmata, which I had no prior interest in, I was left with very little else to look forward to. But along came the summer game announcement season formerly known as E3, and with it came more games that are exciting to me personally than I ever expected. So now I'm going to talk about the upcoming games I'm most excited about, the ones I'll be playing day one without hesitation. And just for fun, how about we make this a good old-fashioned top 5 list, with another 5 honorable mentions thrown in for good measure. Number 5. Star Fox. I've played Star Fox 64 more times than I can count, and remake or not, I already plan to continue replaying Star Fox 64 until my hands no longer work. It's just such a perfect little game that never gets old, with finely balanced gameplay, infinitely quotable characters, and an iconic Koji Kondo soundtrack. When they announced this new Star Fox game, like everyone else, I was hoping it was a brand new game, but alas, it was a remake of Star Fox 64. Again. And Star Fox 64 was already just a reimagining of the original Star Fox. As with Star Fox Zero, man, how many different ways can we fly through the same level themes with the same characters to fight the same war against the same villain? I mean, Star Fox Assault was right there, acting as a perfect example of what more you can do with the Star Fox concept. So here I am once again, pining for the day that we get a new game that is to assault what Assault was to 64. But in the meantime, it's time to fly from Corneria to Venom to fight Andross once again. And you know what? I'm okay with it. Like I said, either way, I have many Star Fox 64 replays in my future, so why wouldn't I be excited about replaying it again, but with amazing graphics, an incredible, reorchestrated soundtrack, as well as a lot of fun little character interactions and additional story tidbits in between missions. This isn't the game I wanted to see next in the Star Fox franchise, especially after it's been 10 years since the last game, and the game before that one was also a Star Fox 64 remake, but Star Fox 64 is phenomenal, and I can't deny that I'm very eager to play this new remake. Number 4. Final Fantasy VII Revelation. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was a feat. It's one thing to expand the Midgar section of the original game into its own full experience, which is what they did in Remake, but it's another thing entirely to rebuild nearly the entire world of Final Fantasy VII to scale, to take the abstraction of the original game's world map and fully realize it, to take all these classic pre-rendered backgrounds and transform them into fully explorable 3D environments. The fact that they were able to pull off the sheer scope of Rebirth was insane. When I finished the game and put my controller down for the last time, all I could think about was how they could possibly top Rebirth from the next installment. I mean, Rebirth was already such a massive step up from Remake in just about every regard, so surely that means the next game, which we now know as Revelation, would similarly expand upon Rebirth to the same degree. But how? Well, now that Revelation has been unveiled, you can color me impressed, cause it's looking like they really pulled it off. Everything from flying across the world map in the high wind and being able to jump off from any point, to the expansion of the already incredible battle system with the addition of a freaking job system. Who expected that? It all just looks so good. Plus, with the addition of Vincent and Sid to the playable roster, and the promise of all those cool moments from the original game finally being recreated, and I am already beyond sold. Number 3. Resident Evil Veronica. Oh, I've been waiting for this one to be announced. The Resident Evil series has just been casually cranking out hit after hit for the last decade like it's nothing. 7, 8, and 9 were all great, and the remakes of 2, 3, and 4 were even better. The RE4 remake in particular compelled me to crawl out of my heap just to make a video praising it. So, all evidence points to this game being incredible. But there's more to it than that. The original Code Veronica, let's just say, if there was ever an RE game that needed a remake, this was the one. The original is one of the most important games in the series from a lore perspective. It's the link between Chris and Wesker's overarching story in Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 5. It follows up on Claire's search for Chris in Resident Evil 2, and it's the only game to have the two siblings interact. This game also probably has the most fun and interesting plot in the whole series, but the problem is that the game is just such a chore to play. Like, there's a lot to enjoy about the game, and I can easily see why a lot of people hold it in such high regard, but man, this game is was just so cruelly, unfairly difficult that I legitimately don't think I would have even been able to beat it without using the infinite first aid spray glitch. And the backtracking is some of the worst I've ever trudged through. Just when you think you're approaching the game's climax, you're forced through so much covering of old ground that it practically doubles a game's playtime. But here we are, over a quarter century later, and the Resident Evil team has been just pumping out the hits. So this is their chance to expand on everything good about Code Veronica and fix everything else. And I know they can do it. We might just be looking at one of the best games in the franchise, and by golly, that is something to be excited about.
Stay there. I'm coming.
Number 2, Dragon Quest XII Beyond Dreams. I just made a whole video about this game, but needless to say, I'm excited. In fact, I've been excited for like half a decade now, but still, I could only muster up so much hype for a logo reveal teaser. But now that the game has finally been unveiled, this is pretty close to being my #1 most anticipated game. I've yet to be disappointed by a new Dragon Quest release, and the most recent mainline title, Dragon Quest XI, ended up being one of my favorite video games I've ever played. And that's quite the statement to make considering how rarely any games released in the last decade have managed to reach my ridiculous standards. Then there were the HD 2D remakes of Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3, which were honestly incredible, with so much new high-quality greatness to delve into that proved that the Dragon Quest team are still at the top of their game. This is all to say, Dragon Quest XII is all but guaranteed to be an actual masterpiece. And with the addition of futuristic tech like robotic partners, motorcycles, and hovercrafts, as well as the possibility of returning locations from previous games, and an interesting concept revolving around the world of dreams, it seems like this game is getting just enough of a shake-up to keep things fresh and exciting, while still adhering to that tried-and-true Dragon Quest formula they've been honing for the last 40 years. Man, I absolutely cannot wait to play this game when it releases... when I turn 100. And before I talk about my single most anticipated upcoming release, how's about some honorable mentions? Here's a whole nother top 5 within your top 5. It's like top 5 section. Pokemon Wind and Waves. Another set of Pokemon games comes another chance for the series to draw me back in. At this point, I know Pokemon will never go back to the way I like it. I still have the fondest of memories exploring those branching routes and complex cave systems in the classic 2D games, but modern Pokemon just keeps pushing for that open world, which is quite literally the opposite of what I liked about the series. But instead of lamenting the game for what it isn't, I'll instead remain optimistic that the new game can at least take what I loved about the Legends games and apply some of that magic here. Will this be the game that draws me back into the mainline Pokemon series? Time will only tell. Bloodstained 2. I've beaten every single Igavania game from Symphony of the Night to Ritual of the Night. And yes, that includes Circle of the Moon, which Koji Igarashi wasn't involved with, but you get the point, it's all the same. I've been through the highs and lows of this sub-series, so I'm bound to it whether I like it or not. Thankfully, the new game looks very promising, and if it's at least as good as its predecessor, then we're in for a pretty good time. Tales of Eternia. Unlike every other game on this list, Tales of Eternia isn't a new game or a remake, just a lowly remaster of a PS1 classic. But I'm excited for a multitude of reasons. One, it means that the ongoing Tales of Remaster project isn't just limited to the low-hanging fruit of the most recent HD games, but they're also willing to go back to the older titles. Maybe we'll even get some of those classic 2D Tales games that we never had localized before. And more to the point, Tales of Eternia is a game I've been meaning to play, but anytime I tried it, I was turned off by the awful vocal performances. This remaster will not only have new voiceovers, but also an entirely relocalized script, as well as an assortment of quality of life improvements. And with it being easily accessible from a modern console, it's looking like this is the year I finally delve into the worlds of Tales of Eternia. Persona 6. Well, that teaser trailer showed us absolutely nothing. At least we know the game will have a green UI. Amazing. The Shin Megami Tensei series is usually a pretty good time, and don't tell anyone I said this, but I kinda like Persona 4 a lot. In fact, I played the PS2 and PS Vita versions, and P4 is a long game, so that's a lot of time dedicated to this series. If Persona 6 can reproduce the same magic as Persona 4, then it's looking like we have quite the game coming from over the horizon. Wonder which one will release first, this or Dragon Quest XII? Star Iliad! You've probably seen a bunch of other videos similar to this one get pumped out in the post-not E3 2026 haze. but I can guarantee none of them featured this obscure upcoming indie release. I am sick and tired of telling y'all how great this developer's last game, Phoenotopia Awakening, is. My vocabulary is limited, and I can only sing its praises so many times before I start repeating myself. Long story short, it's a masterpiece of a game. It's my favorite indie game of all time, with only Bug Fables coming close. And as unique and creative as it still doubles as a delightful homage to Zelda 2, expanding upon that game's concepts in such a way that you'd think Nintendo themselves made it. If you want to hear me gush about it in more depth, you can find those tangents in these videos. But this isn't about Phoenotopia. This is about Star Iliad. It seems the devs are taking their abundance of skill and talent and all the lessons learned from their time working on Phoenotopia and dumping it all into this incredible looking Metroid homage that takes place entirely in the body of a giant space whale. I estimate at least another 100 or so years until release, but assuming I gain immortality, I know exactly what I'm using it for. I loved Phoenotopia Awakening so much that Star Iliad, upon its reveal, skyrocketed close to the top of my most wanted games list. The only reason this is just an honorable mention is because of how far off from release it most likely is. And now, back to the main list. Number 1! Zelda 64! It is really difficult to convey just how excited I am for this game. Cautiously excited, but still very much excited. The Legend of Zelda is my favorite video game franchise, the one I am easily the most passionate about, but it has been so very long since the last traditional game in the franchise. A Link Between Worlds was the last normal Zelda game to release back in 2013. The last normal 3D console Zelda game was Skyward Sword back in 2011, and while I love that game, it was already the start of a shift from the Zelda formula, just in the sense that it was so insanely linear. And if I want to be just a little hyperbolic here, the really, actually, seriously normal, traditional 3D Zelda game, with all the classic staples such as a large explorable world, standard button-based controls, puzzle-filled dungeons, etc., was Twilight Princess, and that was decades ago. I have been absolutely starving for another game like it, and this might be it. Because unlike the last time this game has been remade, this looks like, an actual remake, not what's essentially the same game but with the models swapped out. The reveal trailer was the most teasing of teasers, showing just enough to make it evident that this will be more than just an asset swap. Like, they're most likely remaking this game, in the same vein as the Resident Evil and Final Fantasy VII remakes. So what will this game turn out to be like in the end? How do you even fully remake a game like this? What's been changed, and what's staying the same? How far are they gonna take this? At this point in time, there's no answers to those questions. We know basically nothing about the game, but in my dreams, this is the closest we'll likely ever get to a brand new traditional 3D Zelda game, just like the ones I loved back in the day, the ones that kept me going for all those years. Hopefully, like the hero of time, my dreams are prophetic too. I haven't felt this hopeful for a Zelda game in way too long, and if a remake of an N64 game is what it takes for my preferred flavor of Zelda to make a comeback, then so be it. At the very least, canst thou even imagine how good that soundtrack is gonna be? We already have the new Star Fox reorchestrating those classic Koji Kondo songs, and it sounds delicious. Assuming they don't massively screw it up, this Zelda remake will likely end up being a contender for the greatest video game OST of all time. And with that, I, for the first time in many years, have quite the number of amazing looking games to look forward to. I didn't want to make a video like this, that just comes off as kind of like a news dump. Like, hey, here's all the stuff that was recently announced. I don't like to make videos like that. These videos that will age poorly the moment more info about the subject comes to light, instead of videos about a more timeless subject, like my Wii U video, for example. But just like with my Dragon Quest XII hype video, I couldn't help my excitement, and I just had to express myself in some way. Almost every year, I make a video recapping the best games I played that year, and each time, the majority of the games on my list are ancient. Most of the games I beat these days, even the ones that are new to me, are still years old games on generations old systems. It's been so many years that I've actually had this many new releases that I'm actually excited about, but here we are. I guess it's no coincidence that most of the titles I'm hyped for are remakes of games from the late 90s, but let's ignore that. My eventual Top Games of the Year video will actually have games on them from the current year. And for all that entails, that's pretty hype-worthy. I don't know about you, but I take comfort in that.
Say, friend, you got any more of that good sarsaparilla?